CountryWide CONNECT with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
Joining us on the line is Jordan Williams, known to many across New Zealand as part of the Taxpayers Union, heading the fair fight for ratepayers. Jordan, thank you for joining.
Great to be here.
Us. This Ratepayers Report you do annually, I understand. What's changed over the last 12 months or so?
Well, I mean, things are getting worse, to be frank.
Great.
I'm sorry to be so cheery. And, you know, rural communities see it. That over and over again, we're told, look, we have to put rates higher because we need better infrastructure. Well, what Ratepayers Report clearly demonstrates is actually that money is going into one thing, and it's payroll. That's your primary driver, and it's certainly, I've known for a long time it's the case in Auckland, but it is across the board where it councils of all sizes. And it also shows, though, that there is a huge discrepancy between councils, including the ones of the same size. So from the point of view of rural communities, we're often, it's rammed down our throats, bigger is better. We need amalgamation. Well, that's just not true. There is some economies of scale, but once you hit about 40,000, it flat lines on average until you hit about $250,000, and then it actually gets more expensive on average per person. But with thousands of data points, the best advice is to see how your local council compares. Get along, Ratepayers Report, .nz. I had my team dig out some rural examples, and it would be something like this. The Horonua district, they're spending on staff per household about $2,700, whereas Ruapehu, a council of similar demographic and size, is only spending $1,000 per household in staff. It's those sorts of comparisons, and the councils always like to say, it's oranges and apples. Well, the point of Ratepayers Report is it's their own data. Every council has checked it. They've had an opportunity to correct, and we know we do find mistakes, and we've corrected it, and that's why we send it along to the councils to do it. But the data speaks for itself. It doesn't need spin doctors or flash communications departments. What it does require, though, is for the local politicians to front up and explain why they're doing a good job, or in many cases why they're doing such a poor job.
Is it part of the problem, though, Jordan, when it comes to councils and rates, councillors themselves who don't fully understand what they're actually doing? Because quite often they're led by the nose.
Were you speaking on behalf of yourself?
Yeah, probably. Led by the nose by the executive, right? And I do remember feeling quite powerless as a councillor, because we're just told that, well, this is what has to happen, It's a democracy issue is what I'm saying, Jordan, potentially here.
Andy, I think you've really hit the nail on the head for two reasons. The first is that the information flow is far too concentrated on our chief executives. When I was a young lawyer and I founded or co-founded the Taxpayers Union, I was astounded with the number of elected officials that would contact me saying, hey, can you request this information? I can't get it. And the real problem is that, unlike, say, company directors, where you've got a statutory right to demand any information held by the company, these blasted chief executives in the managerial class and the LGNZs of this world have created a system where they say, well, I'm sorry, that's an operational matter, and you're only responsible for governance. Well, I can tell you, if my chair is Ruth Richardson, if Ruth called me and wanted some information by the Taxpayers Union, I said, I'm sorry, Ruth, that's operational, she'd tell me to go take a running jump. And there is some reform going through the Parliament at the moment, and we've got more to say this actually in the next few days, that would actually make the situation worse,
really?
Not better.
How?
Because it will crystallize. Okay, so at the moment, the common law is the advice. In fact, literally right there, I've got the legal opinion we received on Friday on this very thing. So the common law position now is a councillor could get any information that, as long as they don't have an ulterior motive. That's the common law position. In reality, what chief executives are doing is often making councillors go through the LGOMA, the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act, the OIA equivalent for local government, which is just outrageous. And often what happens, and Andy, that's why you hit the nail on the head, is that it's the officials controlling what information the councillors are actually getting. And it's that information asymmetry that makes it really hard for them to do their jobs. What this bill that's going through the Parliament says is that councillors are entitled to any information that is reasonably required to do their jobs, and the arbitrator of that is none other than the chief executive.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what that says is two things. Number one is that it changes the onus. The councillor has to demonstrate that they've got a reason to access the information, which allows a step backwards. Two, it crystallises the issue that the decision maker is the chief executive. And the government says, well, there is an override, and that is that if information is denied, that the council as a whole can overrule the chief executive. But that's not an improvement for two reasons. Number one is the reason you want the information to get to councillors is because you need the minority voices around. You need the opposition. You need the equivalent of, the MP that can file written requests or ask officials in select committees where they have to tell the truth and be politically neutral. You need that around council tables. We're not getting that. The second reason I'd argue that, in terms of governance problems, is that more and more that concentration of power in the executives, but also in unelected officials, unelected committees, the sort of co-governance or the extras that they have on. At the Taxpayers Union, we're Democrats. The reason we do transparency measures like this isn't to just sock it to the elected officials, and they'll admit there's some that deserve it, but actually we need to empower them with comparative information, which is what this is about, but also give them the tools to be able to effectively govern and play that check and balance like a board of a well-functioning company.
The problem is, as an elected member, and maybe on a as you said, as a company director or whatever, you don't know what you don't know, and
absolutely
what you're trying to do.
That was the other thing. The government's reform only applies to documents held by the council, not information. And as you full know, in a big organisation, it's not necessarily it's often what's not written down, which is what you need to know. One of the measures in Ratepayers Report is we've asked every council, is there an ethical duty on your staff in their code of conduct to require political neutrality? And because people think that political neutrality is an obligation on staff, yes, but it's also a protection, because you need officials to be able to speak truthfully when asked questions by elected officials, even if it's inconvenient for the mayor, the chief executive, or the majority on council. Unfortunately, more and more the information is being concentrated through the chief executive, and I'd argue it's a big reason why we're seeing these failings and the growth of these executives within councils.
Jordan, do you think the same could apply to state-owned media organisations?
That's an interesting pivot. I've been pretty... I think it is astounding that the chief executive and I don't mean to dox my own, I see she swans round St Heliers, my local stomping ground. Unfortunately, I married an Aucklander and had to come to this part of the country. But I not to dox on her, but she's on $750,000, the chief executive at Television New Zealand. Very clearly that is an organisation running very low trust. And to me, the issue isn't a single bigot or a bigoted thing that someone did at a drunken party in the Beehive. It is the fact we appear to have a state broadcaster that has consciously tried to cover up that behaviour and silence other media. And I would have thought that if you are a leader or in the executive team at Television New Zealand, you ought to be fronting up.
Okay, so just with regards to that, we've had Arnie O'Brien on our show following the discussion with Walt Cavendish. I understand she works closely
about
with
6
you.
meters that way. She works in my digital marketing agency.
So she could potentially hear our conversation right now. But Walt Cavendish is drawing quite a line between the hit job he believes that he did on him and the backing of Federated Farmers in that, and basically the new landscape of how to get things done when it comes to politics in this country. Are you concerned with how that's shaping up?
I don't know what. I didn't know that. I didn't recognise that name. I don't know what I'm not up to speed on what this has to do with the feds.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's okay. Arnie, I'm sure you read every Substack that Arnie puts out, so I'm sorry that you missed that particular one with regards to national food security, but that's okay.
Annie was overseas last week, and I came into work on Tuesday. I was fundraising the Bay of Plenty, came in late, and I was complaining, I wish someone would give me a heads up, or I wish Annie would give me a heads up on these things that she blogs. I do know that, because there's been a bit of speculation over the weekend that story came from the government. I know that it didn't, because I checked with Annie, but no, I don't get Annie's personal blogging. If only it had something to do with her employer, but it definitely doesn't.
Okay, we've got that on the record
good luck
now.
Telling Annie, good luck telling her what to blog.
Yeah,
or telling her what not to.
Exactly. Oh, so this...
No, I don't know. I don't know what I didn't catch the name or what you said earlier. I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. You've just stipulated that there is no line to draw.
Fair enough.
But with regards to Ratepayers Union report, it's a really good, strong one. The thing that stood out for me the most was probably the backwards rate we're going because of the fact that there's the debt repayment side proportionate is so high. But, you know, in what you can see, where is that consolidation of debt going to come from in such a broke country that we live in?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about what is the driver of debt in central government, or the big excessive spending. It is the cost of New Zealand super, it's health inflation, and actually it's the interest. The largest growing area of government spending is the interest bill. In local government, it is, number one, the staff that we come back to. Number two, there is a big growing bill. The rural councils it's not actually that bad, because it's blown out by Auckland and Christchurch. Next time you go to Auckland, and whether I'm sure on this show you love to hate on Aucklanders, but every letterbox you drive past in Auckland, there's a $24,000 bill that Wayne Brown and Len Brown and Co and Phil Goff have borrowed on their behalf. Very few rural councils carry anywhere near that, which is a good thing. But you read stories like the Central Hawke's Bay Council, as a result of Gabrielle, bridge is knocked out. The cockies in the area approach the council and say, hey, we need a new bridge. And the council says, oh, look, that's going to be 16 million or 14 million. And then I think it was 16 actually. And then they go to a bridge company that can build bridges at NZTA standards, and they get a quote for $2.5 million. Well, I would suggest there's some really, where did the $14 million go? There is, the OECD. I'm sick to the back teeth of people coming on shows like this, and you have local government New Zealand sock puppets that say, well, Jordan, their low rates friends, they don't want any investment in good quality infrastructure. But it's, you peel back that argument, and it's nonsense on stilts. On the OECD say we actually spend quite high on infrastructure. The issue is what we're getting out the other end is very poor. It's a value for money and procurement problem. And two, the growth in rates, if only it was going to infrastructure, as Ratepayers Reports demonstrates, where the growth is in staff.
Yep. No one's going to argue with that on Jordan. At least you're highlighting it, which is good. Thanks for your time, mate. Really do appreciate it. We'll get you on again, and we'll chat some more.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. Appreciate your time.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.